After 50, most men have the same cluster of problems. Stiff hips that ache in the morning, lower back pain that never fully resolves, weak glutes that shift load onto the spine, poor posture from years of sitting, and a gradual, unmistakable decline in the energy and drive that used to feel effortless. These problems are connected. They share a common root in the progressive loss of functional movement, specifically in the hip, pelvis, and posterior chain, that accelerates after 50 when most men stop loading those structures deliberately. Today, I am going to give you 5 exercises that directly address this cluster. Each one is chosen for a specific clinical reason. I will explain the mechanism behind each, including why 3 of them directly affect testosterone production, why 2 of them support pelvic floor function and bladder control, and why all 5 together produce changes you will feel within 2 weeks of consistent daily practice. This is not general fitness advice. This is targeted clinical movement science applied to what the body of a man over 50 actually needs. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Kavaler. I am a board-certified urologist and urogynecologist with over 20 years of clinical practice. Male pelvic health, including erectile function, urinary control, prostate health, and the muscular structures that support all of them, is directly within my clinical specialty. The 5 exercises I am about to describe are chosen because they address what I see failing in the men who come to my clinic: a pelvic and posterior chain that has been undertrained for decades. Everything I share is grounded in published research from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology, the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, and the American Urological Association. Before I describe each exercise, here is the clinical logic connecting all 5. After 50, testosterone declines at approximately 1 to 2% per year. But testosterone decline is not purely biological. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology shows that men who perform regular compound lower body resistance movements maintain significantly higher testosterone levels than sedentary men of the same age. The mechanism is stimulation of the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis through the hormonal response to large muscle group activation. The glutes, hamstrings, hip flexors, and deep core are the most potent activators of this pathway. After 50, the pelvic floor weakens. In men, this shows up as urinary urgency, reduced ejaculatory control, weaker erections, and slower recovery from physical exertion. The pelvic floor is not an isolated muscle. It functions as part of a pressure management system that includes the diaphragm, the deep abdominals, and the hip rotators. Training these structures together restores pelvic floor tone more effectively than Kegel exercises alone. After 50, hip mobility declines due to hip flexor shortening from prolonged sitting, gluteal atrophy, and reduced synovial fluid production in the hip capsule. This shifts mechanical load onto the lumbar spine, which is where lower back pain in older men almost universally originates. Restoring hip mobility removes load from the spine and restores the movement pattern the body was designed to use. All 5 exercises address at least 2 of these 3 systems simultaneously. That is why I chose them. Exercise 1. The 90-90 hip stretch. Sit on the floor with both legs bent at 90 degrees, one knee in front of you, one to the side. Your front shin is parallel to your hips. Your back shin is parallel to your body. Both knees form right angles. Sit tall and lean forward gently over your front leg until you feel a deep stretch in the hip of the back leg. Hold for 60 to 90 seconds. Switch sides. The clinical mechanism. This position simultaneously stretches the hip external rotators on the front leg and the hip flexors and internal rotators on the back leg, the full spectrum of hip mobility restriction that develops in men over 50 from sitting. It also creates a reflex relaxation of the pelvic floor because the hip rotators and levator ani muscles share fascial connections. Men with urinary urgency or pelvic tension frequently notice improvement in symptoms within 2 weeks of daily 90-90 practice. Do this daily, 1 to 2 minutes per side. The single most impactful hip mobility investment available for under 2 minutes of effort. Exercise 2. The glute bridge with a 2-second hold at the top. Lie on your back, knees bent, feet flat on the floor, hip width apart. Press through your heels and drive your hips toward the ceiling. Squeeze your glutes hard at the top and hold for 2 full seconds. Lower slowly over 3 seconds. Repeat. 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. Rest 45 seconds between sets. The clinical mechanism. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the body. Full gluteal contraction under load, which is what the 2-second hold achieves, is one of the most potent single muscle activators of the hormonal response that stimulates testosterone production. A 2014 study in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that glute bridge variations produced greater gluteal activation than standard squats. Greater gluteal activation means a stronger signal to the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. The pelvic floor mechanism. At peak hip extension in the glute bridge, the levator ani and pubococcygeus muscles of the pelvic floor co-contract reflexively. This is the same contraction that controls urinary flow and supports erectile function. The glute bridge is one of the few exercises that activates the pelvic floor at its mechanically most effective point, extended hip position. Exercise 3. The deep squat with a controlled 3-second descent. Stand with feet shoulder-width apart, toes turned out 30 degrees. Hold your hands in front for counterbalance. Take 3 seconds to lower your hips below knee level, sitting back and down rather than forward. Hold 1 second at the bottom. Drive through the full foot to stand. 2 seconds on the way up. 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions. I want to address the concern that comes up every time squats are mentioned to men over 50. A controlled bodyweight deep squat does not damage healthy knees. It strengthens the structures around the knee joint. The studies that associate squats with knee problems involve heavy barbell loading with poor form in competitive athletes. A slow, controlled bodyweight squat to depth is a therapeutic movement for the knee, hip, and lumbar spine. The testosterone mechanism. The deep squat simultaneously activates the quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, adductors, and erector spinae, 6 major muscle groups firing together. Research published in the Journal of Applied Physiology has consistently documented that compound lower body movements involving this range of muscle mass produce the largest acute elevations in testosterone and growth hormone of any exercise type. The deeper the squat, the greater the muscle fiber recruitment, and the stronger the hormonal signal. Exercise 4. The dead bug. Lie on your back, arms pointed straight toward the ceiling, knees bent at 90 degrees, lifted so your shins are parallel to the floor. Press your lower back firmly into the floor. This is the critical cue. Slowly lower your right arm overhead while simultaneously extending your left leg toward the floor. Stop before either touches. Return. Then left arm and right leg. Slow and deliberate. 3 seconds in each direction. 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions per side. The clinical mechanism. The dead bug trains contralateral limb coordination, the opposite arm and leg moving together, which is one of the most fundamental movement patterns of human locomotion. After 50, this coordination degrades as the nervous system becomes less efficient at recruiting muscles in synchronized patterns. The dead bug reestablishes the neurological connection between the deep core, specifically the transverse abdominis and multifidus, and the pelvic floor. Research in pelvic floor rehabilitation has established that deep core activation through exercises like the dead bug produces consistent pelvic floor co-contraction that isolated Kegel exercises cannot match. For men concerned about urinary control or erectile recovery, this exercise addresses the neurological driver of pelvic floor function that is almost never targeted in standard fitness programming. Exercise 5. The standing hip hinge. Stand with feet hip-width apart. Place your hands on the creases of your hips. Push your hips backward, as if closing a car door with your pelvis, while keeping your spine long and your chest lifted. Your torso drops toward horizontal. You feel a stretch in your hamstrings. Then drive your hips forward to return to standing. This is not a forward bend. Your spine stays neutral throughout. All the movement comes from the hip joint. 3 sets of 12 repetitions. Add light dumbbells when the bodyweight version feels controlled. The clinical mechanism. The hip hinge is the fundamental movement pattern for everything a man does in daily life that involves bending, picking something up, loading the dishwasher, getting in and out of a car. When men lose the hip hinge pattern, they substitute lumbar flexion, bending from the back rather than the hip. That substitution is one of the primary drivers of disc degeneration and lower back pain in men over 50. Retraining the hip hinge pattern reloads the posterior chain, glutes, hamstrings, and erector spinae, which takes load off the lumbar spine, reduces lower back pain, and stimulates exactly the large muscle group activation that supports testosterone production and pelvic blood flow. Here is the complete daily protocol. It takes 10 to 15 minutes. 90-90 hip stretch, 1 to 2 minutes each side daily. Glute bridge, 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps with 2-second hold, 45-second rest. Deep squat, 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps with 3-second descent, 60-second rest. Dead bug, 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps per side, slow and controlled, 45-second rest. Standing hip hinge, 3 sets of 12 reps, 60-second rest. Do this 5 days per week. Rest days mean light walking, not complete inactivity. By day 4 or 5, most men notice looser hips and less morning stiffness. By 2 weeks, the pelvic floor response and energy improvement become noticeable. By 4 to 6 weeks, the testosterone-supporting hormonal environment this routine creates begins to compound. The problems most men over 50 experience: stiff hips, back pain, declining energy, weaker bladder control, reduced sexual performance, are not separate problems. They share a common root in the progressive deterioration of the hip-pelvic-posterior chain system that most men never deliberately train. These 5 exercises address that system directly. They are not complicated, they require no equipment, and the mechanisms behind them are documented in published clinical research. 10 minutes, 5 days a week. Start today. I am Dr. Elizabeth Kavaler. I will see you in the next video.